Bill.
And I'm Candace.
And we're the Disruptors.
Take 752. I'm so grateful that you got it right this time, Bill.
Well, I've been practicing in 753 as of today. Oh, do we have a great show lined up today? We have special guests.
We do have special guests here in the studio.
And we're going to find all that we can about Wild Child. So what I want to do is I want to hop in the Wayback Machine, and we're going to take a trip clear back to the beginning of the Wild Child. And we have a special guest, and our producer is going to introduce her to us today.
Welcome to the show, Chris.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Yes, actually, I do have a special guest. She is here to tell us about the early beginnings of Wild Child, and actually how the Wild Child even came into existence.
Thank you, Chris. I'm so happy to be here. There's nothing I like to talk about better than my sweet girl. So, in the beginning, she was never a difficult child to raise. Ha! The girl has got a mind of her own. And
I've always been easy, Bill.
But never cheap.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Well,
this ought to be good. The listeners can't wait to understand how the Wild Child. Oh, wow.
Well, when she was little, of course, Candace is a twin, and out of her, she has a brother that was born at the same time she was, and they're alike, but they're very different. So when the doctor...
He owes me for womb rental. I'm older.
Yes, you are, by 20 minutes.
That's it.
Yeah.
See? I allowed him to share part of that womb, and he owes me money with interest. But go ahead.
This is quite a family show we're going to have today, isn't it?
It's about business.
All about business.
Actually, when Candace and her brother were born, we were in business. Her dad was a roofer and cider, and that was our business. So one of the things I remember, I was having to talk to the tax people about forms, etc., and I lost sound of the two, and I turned around, and there they were. I could see them from where I was standing in the kitchen. They had opened up the drawer that the cereal was in, and one of them was dumping the cereal on all of my tax forms, and the other one was rubbing it in. So I knew right away that one of them was going to be very interested in business.
Yep, that's me. Thanks, Bill.
That's where she started at, then was rubbing cornflakes into a tax form.
That's right.
It's like Cheerios. They ground in better.
Oh, Cheerios, okay, we stand corrected. In a tax form. Well, how did it develop from there, from tax forms into the wonderful things that she can do now?
Well, we've always had businesses, and we've always been involved in business. I love the relationship between people and how business is actually conducted. We at one time were the largest in Pierce County, the largest food concessionaires. And one of the things that we did in order to do that was we traveled all over Washington State with food concessions. And they were young, and we had a lot of opportunity for them to learn about business. We talked about everything. We would sit at the table and we would talk about what kind of letters look good on a sign. What do you think? Because we developed our businesses, but we knew that we had to advertise them. So it was kind of a crazy dynamic, but they seemed to get along with it, and we all took part. And so that's how we started.
So Candace actually, as a child, got introduced to the fundamentals of what business was really all about.
Absolutely. She not only got introduced to organizing a business, but she also had to learn how to count change. Because
that's a lost art today, by the way.
That is. Nobody knows how
Nobody
to do that.
counts change back.
No.
We would have to count change back.
That's exactly right. They had to, because that was what we required. We thought that was the right way. Nobody could say that they hadn't got the right change. And besides that, part of traveling with this business when you have children young is you want to teach them this is their classroom. So not only did she have to learn about counting change, but she also had to learn about talking to people. And different people require a different conversation. So she learned early on about people and about money and about business.
So she says that her education really started right around the age of 8.
That's about right, Chris. That's about right, because that was the summer, I think, that we built our first food concession and went on the road with it. It was called Cane's Apple Dumpling Gang and Things. And
She was the thing?
no,
No, she was a
Of
dumpling.
course not.
Why?
And had I known you, you would have been the hood ornament.
I just thought, the way you introduced the company, that Candace was part of the title.
Oh no, we had some wonderful adventures. We went all over. We went to Seafair. We went right down by close to the pits when they were running the hydros. We met Chip Hanauer. So they've met all kinds of people with some prominence. So they know how to act around people. People are just folks.
You sure the heck are.
So
That's why I know how to speak to you, Bill.
That's true. It's a little bit off from speaking with people than speak to me, but that's very true. Candace, talk to us about what you did learn in this experience from the 8 up and some of the points that made you want to form a company that you formed today.
Well, I think first and foremost, it comes from a love of people. Even when people don't act right, we still see the potential of what they could bring to the table had they just not, acted with a bunch of nonsense. And so, but it was through talking over business that really developed into my love for that vehicle to be able to hug necks, kiss cheeks, and change the world. And, my parents made it easy for us to ask questions. And they didn't hold us, I'm saying us, my twin brother and I, they didn't hold me tight. Matter of fact, it was more like, get out there, get amongst them. I don't ever remember them being worried when we were out on the fairgrounds. We would go at Monroe and spend time with, now I'm going to date myself, but with Mr. Burbeck and Mr. Bollinger. And they would come, and not only would they buy an apple dumpling, but then they would take us sometimes, and we would learn how to do call-outs, how you use a trash can, how you run money. I mean,
How
these
you
are
use a trash can?
that's right, for crowd control. How can you force people to come by you, past you, by just placing an obstacle in their way subconsciously, how people will move. When we did call-outs, they would finish their spiel or whatever they were selling, and then they would have us count to 5, and we'd go, I'll take one. And the first one was always the hardest one to get. And then after that, somebody else in the crowd would go, oh, you know what, I'll take one. And then my twin brother would go, I'll take one. Now you've got momentum. And then it would cause other people to purchase. We learned that there. We learned how you run money. How do you tell a real dollar bill from a counterfeit? And so just learning those types of things, understanding that business is far more than a building. It's all relationship. It has everything to do with that relationship, your product, your service, how you view people. There's a psychological component as well as a moral or a responsibility to society.
and at some point, integrity has to come in there very prominently.
Absolutely.
It does.
So,
It
yeah.
does.
And you built that into her, really, because Candace really puts forth the foot to say, hey, I'm not here to take you for your money. I'm here to make sure that you are successful. And I will do everything in my power and everything in my information banks, my knowledge banks, to make sure that you are successful. And she just doesn't take people for their money. I mean, I remember one business, the spa. They spent $17,000 for a sandwich board.
That must have been quite a sandwich board.
Well, ultimately, yeah, that's what they got for a business consultant. But my mom was never ever one. You told the truth, even if it was painful. And if you agreed to something, it's business. You agreed to it, and you better own up. And it doesn't matter if it cost you. You gave your word, and your word is your bond. And you didn't need contracts. We had contracts, obviously, back then, but it was still business. A lot of business was still done on a handshake.
A lot of fairground, some of fairground business. We got into the fairground business, concessions, about in a time when the handshake was still used among some, and yes, some of our vendors, the people that we actually bought supplies from, it was a handshake for them. I don't know what it is today because I haven't been in that business now for years, but I know that we had a good friend that had a small, he supplied concessionaires with different little small equipment, or if he could come in and fix something in a hurry, he did. Todd, and he was a great, wonderful guy, but he used to put it real simply, if you don't get your money, you're in big trouble. I think that's where business was going at that time, and I think probably it's gotten a little bit more that way. You want to be able to know that if you tell somebody something, you're going to do everything you can to make it happen, because you've said that, and your name is important. Everyone's name is important. That goes back to everything. Knowing your customer. Who is your customer? My son taught me a really big lesson, and I have used it in sales forever. He was just young, just old enough to play t-ball. And we were doing our first t-ball practice, and his mitt was bigger than him, and we are running around after our first practice on our way back to the car. He's throwing that mitt in the air, trying to catch it. Of course he can't, but he's having a marvelous time, and he's really enjoying it. And he says, "Mom, I love my coach." I said, "Well, son, you just met him. Why do you love him?" He said, "Mom, he knows my name." And if it's important for a, let's say, 5-6-year-old to know that someone knows their name, how important is that in business? Because life is business. How important is that to know your name?
Actually, you're right, because mom and pop shops for restaurants, they get to know their regular customers by their first name, and it keeps them coming back. I know it does for me.
Yes,
when
absolutely.
They say, "Hey, Chris, how you doing today? You want the usual?" Yeah.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
So, yeah, that is important.
I usually get the deal. Didn't you read the sign? It says "Stay out." You know that
No
court
dogs
order.
allowed,
Yeah.
you mean?
That court order, Mr. Lee. Did you?
I was thinking that
get
your
it?
table is in the back.
Well, let's jump in the time machine now and let's speed up a little bit. Let's go. Candace, when and how many jobs have you had, and when did you really step in as a younger adult into the business world?
Well, I've had jobs all over in a variety of different industries trying to find myself. One of the jobs that I did take was that would be shocking probably for some, and that is I was a spooner in a fish gutting line on an Indian reservation. And
good.
I did that for 2 seasons and decided that the fishing industry was not an industry I wanted to spend my life or my money in. So... and no, it was not glorious or glamorous.
It doesn't sound like it would be.
It wasn't. 18-hour days.
Wow.
A lot of hard work.
All the salmon you could see.
Yeah. No, I still had to pay $4 for those salmon.
Yeah, but it taught you something. What did you learn from that?
Well, I learned a couple of things. One, it was the first time that I got paid according to my gender. They couldn't get away with that now. I don't believe, but so I worked hard, and the second or third day I was out there on the line, they didn't know my name. They called me woman, and they said woman. They finally got my attention because I thought, who are you yelling at? And they said, if you are going to work like a white man, then you will be paid like one. And I thought that was interesting. I got $1 an hour raise right there on the spot. And that was completely based on gender. Not
really. It was based on your work. They raised you up according to gender, but really you got it because of your work ethic.
Yeah, and that work ethic came from working all those long hours of what my parents had.